photo historian is not like bankers that going around, and that's to give you some kind of illustrations. The scholarship of this medium, photography. My parents, they never understand until today what what I do, and then I was wondering why people pay you money for looking at photographs. And I look at I'm looking at photographs all the time. Nobody pay me money. So that kind of that kind of anecdote tell us how we understand photography. So because photography is so close to our life, so it is difficult for people like my parents, bless them, to make a distance with this medium. But at the same time, our practice, our daily practice with photography, doesn't match with our understanding about this medium. So we assume that people understand the same way we understand the photograph that we send to the people. So reading text and reading visual, sometimes because of this kind of proximity, we blur. So anyway, so that's the way. When I'm preparing this tour, I was thinking about that things. When that kind of proximity about when photography become part of our day-to-day life, become part of our culture. Yeah, we identify ourselves with the photography, and we think that to have our portrait taken, it's something that goes without saying. Yeah. When did that start actually? And that's part of the reasons why I started our tour today with these two portraits of the Jogja kings and his queen. So this is Hamengkubuwono the sixth, and one of his wife. I think the queen wife is a queen consort, as they put it in England, the Ratu Kencana. But I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about the medium in which they are depicted. This is ambrotype. Ambrotype is the second generations of photographic process after daguerreotype. So the story behind the ambrotype is quite interesting. It was invented by the Englishman called Frederick Archer in the 1850s, just 5 years after the daguerreotypes. So, but the inventions of photography in England has different character with the inventions of photography somewhere else. The invention of photography in England was part of what do you call it? Like the Renaissance exercise. You have these Renaissance people like archers, the calotype Talbot, like the David Brewster, the St. Andrew circles, where I study history of photography. They try to the reasons why they try to fix the image that reflected through the camera obscura. That's part of their pursuit as an intellectual. They are well-to-do people coming from well-to-do family. They didn't have to work, so they can do experiments in their study. So they create this kind of thing, and then you have calotype, you have different kind of processes around that time, and the wife will create will collect their husband experiments, and that become the source. Our source, photo historian, to study the history of photography, that kind of thing. That's in England. In France, that's a little bit different. Daguerre, Jacques-Louis Daguerre, he was an entrepreneur. He wants to fix that image for commercial purposes. Yeah, so that's part of the reasons why daguerreotype spread all over the world rather than calotype. This is by Talbot in England. So, but there was part of rivalry as well between the Brits and the French in the continents. So, and as you know, when daguerreotype, when Daguerre released his invention, that actually he worked together with Nips. Sorry, I'm going a little bit deeper to the history of photography. The Academy of Science in France bought the daguerreotype, the inventions, and released it to the public as the presence of the France to the world. So you can use daguerreotype without paying the patent. Whereas the Talbot type or calotype in England, the British Science Council, something like that, they didn't do the same. So you have to pay the calotype. That's why calotype spread less so than the daguerreotype. So there is this kind of thing. And then, of course, there is the American. So like I said, ambrotype, it used to be, they used to call it as a collodion wet process, a positive process, invented by this guy called Frederick Archer, as part of his intellectual exercise. And then this guy called James Ambrose Cutting in America learns about this kind of inventions and make it a little bit better. And then he patented this collodion process and call it, his name is James Ambrose Cutting, and call it ambrotype. So that's because there's elements of commercial. So that's, I'm going a little bit longer about this to give you the impressions how this medium developed in its early days. So photography was not invented by a single splash of genius. This is some kind of a collective effort by different people in different parts of the world that try to have this kind of process, try to have this kind of mechanized process of capturing image. Yeah, so that part of the industrialization. So that's another historical context that we need to understand why photography so fit really well with the industry. Before photography, you know, we paint. Yeah, if you are rich and you have your likeness, on the wall, you hire painters. But within the Industrial Revolution, that kind of process was not enough anymore. We need a faster thing to have the kind of thing. So this kind of a historical context that foster the invention of photography. Why a lot of people from different parts of the world try to work to perfect the photography inventions. So that's the story behind ambrotype. And within the colonial context, photography become a medium to do many things. but ultimately, photography become a tools to make the people in the colony feel that they are part of the modernity. Yeah. So if you have your portrait in the 1800 something, then you feel modern. You participate in this modernity. And because of that, camera become a very effective diplomatic tools. Yeah. So if you want to start to negotiate with the local leaders, you send photographer, and they will set up, or you give a present, something like this. Yeah. So this is almost like you invite them to be part of your cultures, your photography culture. So that's the politic and diplomatic sides of photography practice in the colony. Of course, there are many other way photography being used during the colonial era to document the success of the colonial project and so on and so forth. There is an anthropological side of it that we will look at later. So yeah, so that's the reason why I take you here to look at this very beautiful ambrotype. Yeah, I believe this is the largest ambrotype from this era exists in this world. So this is very, very valuable collection by this Lee family collection. This is the largest one. I've never seen ambrotype, and I've been doing this since 2007. So I visited almost all the places that hold photography collection from colonial Southeast Asia. I've never seen ambrotypes in this size. So yeah, so this is just the footnotes. Let's. Any question? Sorry. The ambrotype is similar to daguerreotype, and the process is happen in the camera. So you put the glass with the certain chemicals, and the exposure times between 5 to 60 seconds. So this is a lot of improvement compared to daguerreotypes. The exposure times become faster and faster. That's important if you have to do a portrait, yeah. So you don't have to stand still for much longer. So that's the ambrotype, and the difference between the daguerreotype and ambrotype is the back. This is they use this like a darkens backdrop. So it's put forward the sitter, so you can see the details and things like that. Yeah. So, say it again. It's on glass. Yeah, on glass. Yeah, on glass. A glass negative. Yeah.
So one offer cannot be reproduced.
Yeah. Okay, now let's move it here. So from ambrotype was the one of the most popular process after the daguerreotype, because it's very quick and then become very, very popular. Photographers used to call themselves as a daguerreotypist rather than photographer. And then when they advertised their service in the newspaper, they specified what did they do. So and so will do the ambrotype portraiture. So and so will is a daguerreotypist. And so they identify themselves with a certain process that they do. Okay, and then now it's just all they call themselves a photographer. So here I want to show you how that Western technology called photography, so to speak, become inculturated within the cultures of Southeast Asia. So the function of portraiture, for example, which become the part of modernity, that's how that become part of the certain cultures in Southeast Asia. For example, like this one, yeah? So this kind of photographic application, if I can put it that way, show how photography being used to certain cultural practices. Like this one, we understand how we respect our elderly, and it's shown here. So this portrait of this pair of peranakan, like this one. This is like something that you see in the altar, right? As part of the devotion. Yeah. So in India, for example, the photography become pretty much part of this kind of cultures. You worship the photographic representations of whatever represented in there. So that's what's kind of foreign for Western culture, for example. So that kind of inculturation process also very important for us, photo historian, to study how photography become part of our cultures. And from here, and also like this one. So this is the hand coloring process as well. This is quite interesting from the perspective of local practice of photography in the 19th century. In Southeast Asia, hand coloring was not very developed as good as it develops in East Asia, in Japan, for example. Hand color practice of 19th century photography was so advanced that even better than color photography. You can see how they color this, but it didn't develop quite well here in Southeast Asia. I don't know why. For now, maybe there is elements of technology, or there is no market for that. I don't know the answer to that, but I just noticed that phenomena, and I still try to find the answer. The other explanation, perhaps, the technology of photography become more developed into different directions in this part of the world. Develop into something more like this, from like photography applications, to put it in the kind of porcelain and this the medium, or develop into something like this. This is a different applications of photography in different kind of physical context. And this one we see here is, we call this cabinet print. Yeah, the cabinet print is something that you share. Yeah, something that you share, something that you send, like a postcard, like a personalized postcard. Back then, you have an album that specially made to hold cabinet print of yourself, your portrait. So if you go to someone's house and you have stack of your self-portrait, not self-portrait, your portrait, and you give this portrait to your guests. So your guests will put that portrait in their albums. If you go to other people's house and then you have their portrait in their album. So that album, sometimes specially made for that, become a record of your social network.
It's like sort of trading Pokemon.
Yeah, they're trading Pokemon, but the portrait of your friend. Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Sure.
So that's, yeah, social, yeah. It also show where you are in terms of this social hierarchy through those kind of. And then if you go to that kind of, in the Rijksmuseum, for example, you will find that kind of album, and you can trace their social network. And that's a very, very important. For example, I know one guy who studied the sugar industry in Java. He started to trace the social networks of the sugar industry through this kind of album. So that's not only something that you do and for yourself, but for others. For us, photo historian, this kind of cabinet prints very, very helpful, because usually they have the name of the photographer there. Yeah. So yes.
So each of these is a one-off, right?
No. They are reproducible. This one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is gelatin. Some of them, I think this one is albumen. You can tell the albumen is more yellowish kind of. Yeah. So
typically, how many would they get printed?
or as many as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is sorry, we move from ambrotype and daguerreotype into this is calotype, Talbot type. That's the invention of the negative. They start to reproduce indefinitely, basically. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, so in the United States, for example,
Uh-huh.
in the 1860s to 80s, there were tons of pictures of dead children. That was
Okay.
That was a very common practice that if your child died young. And
Yeah.
there are none here.
Yeah,
That was-
yeah. The we call that a postmortem photography.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. They
yeah,
don't do
yeah.
that.
No, they don't do that in Southeast Asia. That's a very good question. In India, that quite common. Yeah, the dead, you will dress it very well, and then you sit next to this dead person and become the postmortem. And for the particularly from the young child, that's a must to remember. But that didn't happen here in Southeast Asia that I'm aware of. Maybe somebody, do you know why is that? Because you don't supposed to see the dead, or
Custom, must be custom.
but it must be custom. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the visual representation of the dead is not very popular when they dead. But you see the pictures of the dead everywhere, like the one as a part altar, but not when they. I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that was not a common practice here until today. Yeah. Now let's go where? Let's go. I talk about the photography as a tool, as a diplomatic tools, and the Siam, the Thailand is a very perfect example for that. So you know, Thailand never been officially colonized, but they experienced the similar colonial relations comparable to the other part in Southeast Asia. This is the photograph of one of the king's consort with camera. It's very well known, and here I want to talk a little bit about how photography culture developed within the royalty, and just to link my explanations about how photography camera being used as a diplomatic tool. When Queen Victoria sent her what do you call it, her diplomatic mission to Bangkok, she sends a present. Guess what the present? Camera. So that's the present. That's part of the gift present camera, and that's also fit really well with the Thai royalty, because that's the time also when the Thai royalty start to see that they need to modernize themselves, and the camera is one of the symbol of modernity, like I said earlier. So that explains why until today the royal family become the patrons of Royal Photographic Club until today. Their collection is amazing. Yeah, talking about 19th century photography collections, like I said yesterday in the panel, I said one of the most difficult part that any photo historian from Southeast Asia has to face is how to access the archive. They are not here. They are in Europe or in Australia, except in Thailand. Yeah, their archive is in Bangkok. Accessing, I'm not saying anything about access, but they are there. I know they are there and accessible. How difficult to access? In my experience, it's not very easy, but they are there, but they're closer. I don't know, Charmaine, is it easy to access a Royal Photography collection? Okay, so it's, anyway, but in terms of geographical proximity, they are there because of this. Because photography was seen as one of the vehicle to enter modernity.
Can you clarify? So you speak about the archive. also in Thailand.
Uh-huh.
What is the content?
Say it again?
The topic. What are the topics? Is it archives of
Oh,
scenes of Thailand?
oh, yes. It's if you can see here, the archive first of themselves. Yeah, if you have a camera, you like to take photograph of yourself, your how you do your how you conduct your daily life, and that's a very important document because nobody else have that access first. And second, they start to go out of the royalty and then start to photograph what they see. Yeah, so there is you can argue the documentary impulse in there, and that's not unique in Thailand, but also that's spread all over Southeast Asia among the members of the local gentries. For example, the first Indonesian female modernist, Kartini, if you ever heard of her, is from the late 19th century. This Kartini woman, Kartini wrote a lot of letters to her friend in the Netherlands, of course in Dutch. Then you can tell that she is educated in Dutch. And one of in one of her letter, she said, "Oh, I wish I had a camera, so I can tell people what the Javanese actually look like." That's a very, very telling, the line of letter. First, she understands the functions of photography as a documentary tool. Second, she started to critique that actually what you see photographically so far, that's the way the Western see. That's early 18th century, written by female writers. That's a very, very fascinating when I read that line. So the urgency to use camera to communicate in that way, critically, already there, and spread across those elite who had access to this medium. They start immediately see the potential of photography to do something else beyond what the so-called Western photography did. I don't want to argue that photography have this kind of emancipation potential, but I just want to say that this medium somehow fit really well to express new and progressive ideas. That is something that we need to explore in the history in this region. We have very little knowledge about that, how photography evolved or being used to define our own modernity. This exhibition, the whole thing, try to start that conversations actually by looking at the photograph like this. This is the photograph being used within the religious context, yeah. But in portraiture, not only in portraitures, but the color portraiture. So those kind of practice, people try to move beyond the technical limitations of the camera. That's something very important. I mean, when you see photography and said, "Oh, this is not enough. I want to do something more about this machine kind of presentation." That a new idea coming up based on the tools that you use. That's something that can be developed further and further. So from there, and you see here, this is we always say that photography is the medium of representation. This is the representation of people using medium representation. So this is kind of a meta representation. And this is, whoever took this photograph, who took this photograph? We don't know. Whoever took this photograph, he or she understood this kind of thing. These two photographs show us, demonstrate to us their understanding of photography as a medium representation. So they want to show the medium of representation through photography. That's why I said this kind of using the post word like a meta representation. Then that also has already happened in the 19th century. That's quite advanced actually to understand the functions of photography as a medium representations. So at the same time, there was still belief that the elements of the non, how should I put it? There's still belief the mythical elements in the camera. In China, for example, in some part of the China, back then in the 19th century, people believed that because the likeness of photographic likeness is so high level, they believe that you put the eyeball of of child in the camera. In Africa, you put camera in the middle of the village will empty for a week because they are afraid of this technology. In Southeast Asia, in Java certainly, there is a belief that our existence based on layers. Yeah. So when we are getting older, we are losing these layers one by one until when we have no layers anymore, we died. Okay? Because of the likeness of photography, again, they believe whenever your photograph is taken, that camera take one of the layers of your life. That's why they explain why people was afraid to be photographed within this kind of. So you see here, in one side, you have this sophisticated understanding of camera as a medium or representation. In the other side, you still have that kind of belief. So this make photography even more interesting. This kind of clash. Yeah. So this is not about the old traditions or the modern tradition, the irrational belief or this not. It's too simple to analyze it that way. But it's more to see in Boston, for example. Do you remember there is a huge market for spirit photography, something like that. Something that actually is just double exposure, and then you see like the very not clear images behind you that people, the ghosts, there's a ghost. Oh, this tool can take the image of the ghost. So that kind of practice was not necessarily argue against photography, but also that even underlines how photography being, like I said earlier, inculturated in our lives since the very, even the quote-unquote irrational kind of belief being adopted by the photography. So this kind of versatility of this medium is quite amazing. That's why it's become so popular. And now, any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Somewhere in some of the text here it talks about how the King of Thailand specifically used photography to publicize his image. So my question was, were these images actually published in Bangkok contemporaneously? I mean, in Thailand contemporaneously? In other words,
you mean by published in the?
I mean, could the local people, particularly outside of Bangkok, local Thais, could they see these photographs? Were they reproduced and?
I would like to think so, but I don't have the evidence to support that arguments. But I do know the royal families anywhere in the world, they're aware acutely the efficiency of photography in order to make their subject to love them.
Well, part of the reason I ask is this idea of a god king, and that you're not supposed to look at him.
Yes.
Public photographs like this,
Yeah.
it makes
You make enable your subject to look at you. Yeah, because
it makes you want to see.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I don't know about that actually. Anybody can help me? Is that? I mean, that's very good because in the king, you're not supposed to look at the king, right? You have to look down when you speak of the king. And photography the portrait of the king become the medium for your subject to look at your king. That's a very valid argument, but I'm not very sure because I haven't, and I will double check that. Thank you for that. But I do know that photography being used by the royal family to make their subject to love them. So they make again, go back to the Queen Victoria. She's one of the most photographed royals in the world. She like being photographed, partly because, and they will print her photograph with the family, with Albert and with his children, and then will spread it to the populations to make the royal family closer to the subject, because it was displayed in their house, for example. So that's photography become again part of political tools in that respect. Yeah. Uh-huh.
As to the Thai kings or why they
Yeah.
Chulalongkorn was his father, King Mongkut.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have that when King Mongkut took over the throne from his brother King Nangkla, then that tradition or that belief system has changed.
Yeah.
No, they still will not let the common people have a look at the king. Could have been because they were
Probably, yeah.
You look at him, King Chulalongkorn.
Okay. I don't know. That might be probably the case that the royal family, because of the use of this technology, become more and more relaxed about it. Yeah, but I don't think so. But I don't know. I need to check about it, whether photography changed that kind of traditions, because because photography in a way mediated the way of looking. Yeah. So you not look at the king, but you look at the photograph of the king. Yeah. So and then after a certain time, so like this is the king, this is the photograph, is the subject. You can take the photograph away, and then you can look at the king directly. So after it was being mediated by photography for a certain time, and then you don't need the mediator anymore. So that might be the case, but I don't know. Yeah. Yes, Erika.
Alex, can you share a bit about, because I see a lot of agency in the way that the Southeast Asians have represented themselves.
Uh-huh.
But how about the idea of then its circulation, especially in countries that were colonized, of these Southeast Asian images within the West?
Oh yes. What I want to one thing what I want to argue when we talk about the colonial photography, when we talk about the photography practice in the colonies, we always talk about the photograph of the royalty. We always talk about the photograph of the unknown people, the photograph or the portrait made by Western photographers. That's actually the case, yeah, because it was a common practice that certain agency in London, for example, Negrete and Samba, that's a very well-known agency, they will send photographers all across Southeast Asia and the rest of the world, yeah, to photograph the landscape and the people, the unknown land and unfamiliar faces. And that portrait sent back to the metropolis, and then make available for general purchase. And people will purchase that portrait or photograph, and they make an album. So when your friend visits you, and you can show, oh, this is my photo collections. And this photograph become your cultural capital. So it's elevated your social status. You become the informed people. You become the knowledge people by having this kind of photographic representations of the, like I said, unknown faces and unfamiliar faces and unknown faraway places. Yeah, that's what I call the colonial network, the colonial relations. Yeah, so that also that also force the industrialization process of photography in the colonies. So photographers like Pierre Rossier, photographers like John Thompson, they like Lambert, they come to do that kind of assignment. And then when they arrive in Batavia, when they arrive in Singapore, in Malacca, in Bangkok, they arrive there and start to thinking, actually, I can stay here. I have enough clients here. Yeah, and then they become the colony-based photographer. And this colony-based photographer, after certain years, and I'm talking about 1860s, 1870s, they start to identify themselves as the insider. Lambert definitely identified themselves as the insider. Woodbury and Page in Batavia definitely identify themselves of the as the insider. And Kinsbergen, more importantly, they master their photographic skill here in Southeast Asia, which means they understand really well how the humidity, how the sun, because the sun here different with the sun in America, different with the sun in Europe. They understand how the shadow falls, and they understand that the sun will rise at 6 and set at 6 again. So they understand all of those things. Plus, they also start to understand the local visual traditions. I'm talking about the relief in the temples. I'm talking about the painting in Bali. So they combine this kind of thing almost organically because they learn photography in the colony. So this has become a very interesting debate. What constitutes a colonial gaze when we examine their works? This kind of photographers. Yeah, so that's become very interesting. To talk back to Erika's question about the agency of the locals. That's my long answer. What constitutes locals in this respect? Yeah. So because they see themselves as locals. Oh, I know you. I must. Kinsbergen arrived in Batavia as a theater makers and a painters, and he started to apprentice in the local French studio to retouch the photograph, and he actually learned photography in Java. Woodbury and Page set up the studio in Batavia and literally master their skill. And in Batavia, Woodbury type created in Batavia. Lambert and opened the studio in Singapore, closed it down, back to Germany. At some point, they study with Woodbury and Pitt and opened the studio again in Singapore and become one of the most successful photo studio in this island. So there is this kind of networks where photographers compete, learn from each other through the apprenticeship and so on and so forth. As you know, this climate is the worst enemy for any kind of paper-based thing, yeah, or fabric. So it's very difficult to store photography in this climate. You have to climatize a room, and that's not cheap. And is that the reasons why the materials of 19th century photography, they don't exist in this climate? Yes, maybe that part of course that part of it. You have a photo albums and then you leave it there for 5 years, you take it again and then just things crumble and things that happen all the time, but that's how we keep losing our record in that way. That's why it's safer. It will be safer to put it in Amsterdam or in Paris or in London. Is that the case? It's too simple, right, to answer that. Yeah, is that the solutions of this kind of climate challenges here? But that's explain why they are there, why they are not here. Maybe those who left behind, they get destroyed because of the climate. That must be the case. Yeah, that must be the case. But what happened in Thailand, there still exists today that show that actually we can do it if we want. Yeah, if we understand this problem, we would have find the solution. Yeah, so this is I think that should be the case. Yeah. Shall we move?
These photographs, are these modern prints from old negatives, or are these actually printed 150 years ago?
Oh, the curator is here. She can answer that question. Very charming.
They're all original except the three from Thailand, which can't be Thailand since
They are all original print,
Except
except these three. This is
although so we had to borrow the files from the Thai archives and then print them.
so actually that's a very good question. Actually, yes, we can store it. Look at this. They are original print and been stored in Thailand, right? No. Oh, the local collection. Yeah. So yes, we do. Having said that, these collections were purchased recently, right? And before it stay maybe outside here. I don't know. That's a very important topic to discuss further. To talk about the history of photography and also to talk about the locations of the archive and the climate challenge for that. Okay, let's talk about this one. This is an album, yeah. We are talking about this, how we store photograph. One of the best way to store photograph is to put them in photo albums. Yeah, that's a photo album. Yeah, we need to remember that photo album is the storage place. When we put together the photograph, usually you have a thin paper to put between the album pages. That's to keep it dry and not the album doesn't stick. So album become the quintessential material context of 19th century photography. That explain that 19th century photography, when they arrive in the archive, they never arrive alone. They always arrive with their friends in photo album. And that's a very crucial to understand the 19th century photography practice. Because every single photograph produced in the 19th century, they are always being contextualized within certain narrative within the album. So if you look at this kind of album and you open the album page by page, yeah, whoever construct the album want to tell you certain story in a certain way, in a certain sequence. So that's the photo album. And this one, for example, this is the record of the journey of this Siam king to Southeast Asia. So this is one the high level example happen across the board. So you have this kind of rather well constructed and well materialized album, but you also have the small album of the small, rather modest family. You have a massive album this size as part of the diplomatic tools. Like I said earlier, if you were in a governor's in Singapore and then you finish your contract or your job here and then you about to go back to England, usually one of the presents that were given to you, photo albums of the Singapore. And that happens also if you are directors of small sugar company somewhere in Java and you leave and you go back to the Netherlands, you got a photo albums. And that happens across the board. So if you go to Tropen Museum in Amsterdam, for example, and you said, I want to see 19th century photograph, you will be given photo albums. That's how photo albums materialize within the 19th century context. And then for us, photo historians, that's a very, very helpful to understand all the context.
Alex, who came up with the idea of having a photo album?
Actually, the idea of having photo albums is coming since the very, very beginning. I mentioned the Brewster, Sir David Brewster, in the St Andrew circles in Scotland. So his wife. So this is the old style of division of labor between husband and wife. His wife collect his husband experiments and put it in the book, and then she titled this book as the Collections of Specimen. That was the very first photo album.
What year was it?
That's 1840s. Very, very early, even before the Talbot type invented. So that's the idea to put together any photographic print coming together with the process of photographic inventions. So the albums actually, since the very beginning, is already there. So the people start. So the experience of looking at the photograph is not like this. Yeah. So this is the photograph as the object of display. This is, we turn photography into, so to speak, art. This is Charmaine's fault to turn photography into this. But actually, the way we see photograph has been through photo albums. We see photograph open like this, and we look at like this, like reading a book. Yeah. So that's why people start to argue photography as a language, because the experience to look at photograph is like reading a book, literally. Yeah. So single photograph, to see photograph as a single print, that's first started when photography tried to be part of the visual art discourse. Photography want to be part of painting. That's why people like what is the name that make Henry Pitts Robinson make a big print to compete with the size of the painting, or people like Oscar Gustav Ritslanders make a composite print very big to compete with the painting. That's how we start to understand photography as individual print rather than a collections of prints in photo albums. Yeah, that kind of influence, and then the American start, the Stiglitz and all those kind of names start to introduce photography to the Met in the 1920s in order to bring photography in the scenes of modern art. Yeah, then we start to understand photography as individual print. Photography as art. Yes.
You said that there was this Western case of Asian culture. Was there anything in reverse in such practice, where Asians go to the West and then they want to bring back some sort of memento or record of the West?
Back then, I don't see any evidence of
it. Happening one way.
Yeah, one way. Yes.
The king of Thailand, number 7, went to Europe on a big trip.
Yeah.
Took a lot of photographs and brought them back.
Yeah.
Okay. And in fact, he then instructed the Thai people how to dress and passed laws that all Thai people had to wear hats like Europeans did. And then they showed the photographs.
Oh yes, of course. Yes. I saw a photograph of the king of Thailand with these 2 consorts wearing the Scottish kilt.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. Yes. But that's
No, it was number 7.
Yeah, but it's not the.
Six, it might have been six.
Yes, but I will not argue that's the common practice. That's because of King of Thai, because
Well, all of this is the kingdom. None of this was common practice.
yeah,
But the question was, did Asians go to Europe and take pictures? And the answer was yes.
No, I think the question was whether there was a commercial practice around it, or people want to pursue this kind of thing.
yeah. I mean, I think his question is more whether the gaze was reversed. I don't think that's the case. If we talk about the gaze is the certain way of looking at things, right? And think even what the king's photograph, even although he took photograph of the Europeans, I think he still employ so-called the Western gaze. Therefore, the works of the king's consort become very, very crucial, whether we can start to argue the non-Western gaze within that context can be employed in that to analyze that work. Yeah. So this is the more complicated things. Although even when the camera change hand from the Western to the local, it doesn't necessarily mean the gaze change. It doesn't necessarily mean the change of the camera operator, so to speak, necessarily means change the agency. Yeah, whether that's we don't know yet. We need to look at closely the photograph. Yeah. Okay. How much time do I have left?
As much time as you.
Said?
As much time as you.
Okay. So. Okay. Like this one for example. This is album print. Yes, it is album print. This is when I talk about the unfamiliar place and unfamiliar practice. This is quite common across Southeast Asia, at least, to photograph the local performance. And then this kind of compositional approach with this, you see like a triangle here in the centers with the black backdrop to put forward the sitters. This is the kind of gaze. Okay? This kind of gaze that manifests into the certain compositional approach in this photograph. Yeah, we follow this until today. Don't we have our own traditions? Of course we do. Whether that kind of tradition being practiced within this kind of photographic approach, so far no. And then we ask why. Yeah, if you look at the relief in the Borobudur, for example, that different compositional approach. Yeah, and I start to see the evidence. Actually, people like Isidor van Kinsbergen start to use that kind of compositional approach, how the three stand together. Yeah, in Borobudur you see the three wives of Siwa. For example, yeah, there's so many of them, and they stay close to each other. The way they stand, the way these three wives of Siwa were composed in the Borobudur, in Prambanan relief, similar to the way Kinsbergen photographed the three daughters of the Jogja sultans. That's a very, very interesting. Rather than the three graces, more the traditions in the West. The Zeus have three daughters, and then three graces become like compositional traditions within the Western art tradition. But Kinsbergen's learning after he photographed the Candi Prambanan, he photographed the daughters of Sultan, and you can see the merging there in terms of the composition. Sorry, I become very, very detailed in the visual analysis, but that's quite interesting to see that kind of development. Yeah, talking about whether the gaze was reversed. Actually, there was already some kind of attempt to reverse that kind of gaze, not reverse, to combine that kind of compositional approach by using the local photographic tradition, no, the local visual tradition, not photographic tradition, like, for example, the compositional approach in the temple. Yeah. What else I need to show you? This is quite talking about the gaze. This wall. This is what we call school plate. Yeah. Earlier, I said about how photography become the cultural capital, right? You have photographic representations of unfamiliar faces and faraway land, and then you become the educated persons because you're aware of this kind of different part of the world through its photographic representations. That kind of practice become institutionalized in this school plate. So the Dutch government start to collect the best photographic representations from the Dutch East Indies, colonial Indonesia, and then start to print this size and start to make the comprehensive representation of different aspects in the colony. This is the sugar factory. This is how the locals eat. This is the constructions of iron bridges to show the success of modernizing the colonies, and this is how the local live. This is how the locals constructed through its photographic representations, and so on. And also there is a landscape, the railroad, so everything. And this print were on display at the school. That's why they call it a school plate. Yeah. So this is how the school children learns about Dutch colonial possession. This is not only in the Netherlands, but also in the Brits. The Brits, they always have like the commissions for colonial visual representation. They have commission for that. Yeah. So this is how that kind of practice being institutionalized through the educations. Ironically, the Dutch school in Indonesia also display this kind of thing. So you see here, so the photograph taken about Indonesia, about Java, travel to the Amsterdam and produce in this kind of format, and travel back to Java, and there you can have this kind of a school plate display in a school in Bandung, in Surabaya, in Jakarta. Then I am sure that happened similarly in different parts of the colonies. So this is how that kind of way, certain ways of looking, being taught and then embedded in our unconscious, in us unconsciously. We feel that, oh, this is my way of looking at things. Really?
So just out of curiosity, when you say it was brought back to Java, brought back to Indonesia in the schools, they were schools for local kids as well as colonial children?
No. The school for the local kids. Yeah. After the ethical policy, the Dutch start to build school. Beginning the local the ethical policy. Oh, just sleep. Yeah, I know it's very late anyway. The ethical policy, any Indonesians historian, I don't know. Ethical policy is 19. It's very late compared because the characters of the Dutch colonialism is more merchant colonialism. The Dutch didn't want to colonize Indonesia. They just want to do business, just would trading. But when they realized that actually it will be more efficient to trade if you colonize and then because colonize project is an expensive project, right? You have to hire administrative people. You have to have what do you call it, the soldiers, and it's expensive. That's why we don't speak Dutch, because the Dutch doesn't really care if you speak Dutch or not, as long as I can trade with you. So the Dutch didn't want to make Indonesia as part of the Dutch Empire, the way the Brits want to make India as part of the British Empire, the British Raj is part, that they want to make India British. The Dutch didn't want to make the Indonesian Dutch because it's expensive. There is no ideological, I make a lot of simplification here, but just to, for the sake of the argument, there is no need. Dutch doesn't want to make a Indonesian part of the Netherlands, whereas the Brits want to make Malaysia, Singapore part of the British Empire. And then, of course, there is a progressive element in the Netherlands that you can't just colonize them, you need to educate them as well. And they start to build their school. And their schools start to use these school plates, which is ironic because this is taken about themselves, but through the process of representations of the Dutch colonial machine system, something like that, and go back there. And that happened now as well. If you think about the photojournalism, yeah, we learn about ourselves through the way other people see us, which is fine. That's part of learning. But we need to be aware of that. Yeah.
The ethical policy was built in 1901.
1901, yes, I remember. This is a 20th century things. Yeah. So that's a very, very late. So Dutch presence in Indonesia since 1600 something. That's like a. Anyway, so I think I want to close my sessions with this series. Many people think that the photography entered Southeast Asia for the first time for political reasons. Yeah, to use photography being used as a tool, as a propaganda tool, to show, look, we successfully modernized the colonies. But in the case of Indonesia, the impetus, the urgency to bring photography to Indonesia, to Java, actually for archaeological project. For the archaeological, to photograph archaeological sites. The historical context of that is the competitions amongst the Western colonial power. Yeah, the Arago, this is the members of the French council, scientific council, who give Daguerre the very handsome pensions as exchange of the patents of daguerreotype. He said, imagine what the photography can do in Egypt. We don't have, because the archaeology, back then, if you study archaeology, one thing that you need to have skill is to draw. So you draw everything, you draw the hieroglyphs. And Arago said, imagine what this photography can do in Egypt with all those archaeological sites. We don't have to draw them one by one. We just took photograph. We just take their photograph in the systematic manner. That's exactly what they did. Napoleon sent troops of photographers to Egypt. And that's become some kinds of European things. So the Dutch, the French, the Brits, they start to compete, sending photographers all over Southeast, all over their colonial possessions to take photographs of the archaeological sites, become like a treasure hunting kind of competition. Yeah. So because of that, the Ministry of Colonies in the Netherlands sent a photographer to photograph Borobudur. Yeah, so that's how photography entered Indonesia actually, and I believe that's how photography entered different parts of Southeast Asia within this context of archaeological competitions. And it is a treasure hunt. These things, they are treasure. Yeah. Now in the Tropen Museum, they have five or nine, or between 5 and 9 heads of Buddha. Where the hell? Oh, sorry. That the hell that head of Buddha come from? Of course, from Borobudur. Yeah. So and now they do at the moment they do a provenance research to identify where that head's coming from. So that's become really a treasure hunt exercise. But at the same time, there were archaeologists, of course, who study this kind of this kind of materials. Now, can you imagine how photography helped archaeological as a scholarly discipline? So you don't have to go you don't have to travel for 3 months by ship from Amsterdam to Java, but you can see the photograph and you can study this kind of relief. Yeah, sometimes the photographic representations better than actual experience looking at this kind of thing. Yeah. So, but at the same time, this is the photograph of Kasian Sefas, the first Javanese photographer. And if you look closely, you see Sefas start, I don't know, you can start to put people in there. This is himself in there. Very, 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 very little. And then here, there's some of people there. And this is part of the series. It consists, I don't know how many photographs. 50 something photograph of this series, and there are so many people in that photograph. And Sefas specifically asked his fellow Javanese to be part of this archaeological photograph. So this is like something like want to claim back the status of these sites for the local people. This is to be part of the modernity. Yeah. So of course this archaeological photograph it's not objective. It's full of biases, but at the same time, this series at least show how photography, although it was used specifically for the archaeological expedition, also can be somehow diverted a little bit to talk about something else. When you start to see the numbers of peoples within the archaeological sites photographed from Sefas, the difference with the numbers of people within the archaeological photograph, the photograph of the archaeological site of different photographers. And you compare them, you can start to see the patterns and so on and so forth, and start to draw the conclusion. Actually, these representations of photography within the context tell us more about how photography is being used in this archaeological exercise. Yeah.
Information on how he was commissioned to do this?
Oh yes. So this is also different kind of politics. Yeah. So in the Dutch Indies, they have the Science Council in the Netherlands. Sorry, in Batavia. So this council commissioned photographers to photograph Javanese antiquity, and this has become like the high-profile commissions, like maybe the Singapore Art Council commissions the photographers to photograph something big. And photographers compete to get this kind of commissions. There's some evidence that how photographers compete So Isidor van Kinsbergen got that commission. But at the same time, there is more amateurs archaeological associations based in Yogyakarta, supported by the Sultan and also had by the Izerman. Izerman is was the architect, but also amateur archaeologist, and also with the Gruneman is also Gruneman is the Sultan doctor, the physicist of the Sultan, but he was also amateur archaeologist. But when we talk about amateur, back then, they are very, very serious. They dedicated their life to study for this. And Cephas, friends with Gruneman. And then, therefore, Cephas become the principal photographers of this archaeological association. The amateur, I must say, archaeological association in Jogja. But the work, the quality of the work comparable to the works of the official assignment from the official Dutch East Indies Art and Science.
This is not the official.
No, not the.
True association.
Yeah. But then become the official because then Gruneman submitted this portfolio into in Leidens and published by Leidens, by the Royal Associations of Foreign Language or Caribbean, something like that. Become something official. That's the politic behind it. Put that aside. We are presented with these materials. Yeah, same materials. Okay. I think. Thank you very much to stay 1 hour and a half. And I hope you enjoyed, and then, and enjoy the rest of the show.